I'd never considered running for mayor. I wanted to be, if you like, a writer for this new council. I'd had a brief history. The year before, or 2 years before, the public relations officer of Waitakere City had asked me, would I convene a group of designers to look at the logo for the new city. And I was absolutely delighted to be asked, and I came here, and for the first time I met Councillor Corbyn, Mayor Corbyn, and he introduced the project, and that was to find a logo for the new city that had a contest, and around the walls of the old council chamber were these designs, and most were pretty awful. They were well-meaning but amateur stuff. And interesting enough, if I could leap forward 18 years, that's what I've just done for the new super city. I've chaired the panel that found the logo for the new super city. But there I am, way back in 1990, I guess, because the city was founded in 1989, selecting a logo. We came up with the fern and the mountains. I don't think Mayor Corbyn liked it. I think he saw wine glasses and bubbles or something. But anyway, we told him this is what the judges had come up with. It was a very good judging panel. And so 3 years later, I come back to see him and asked him, could I be basically a public relations officer at the council? Say that I felt that this city could be an environmental city. He disagreed. He felt that Waitakere was a dormitory suburb where people slept and went somewhere else to work. I mentioned, I thought rather passionately, that I was quite a good writer, and I would like to write, say, a newsletter. And if you could find me a small room, as I just retired from the advertising business, I could be, if you like, someone that could work with him. He disagreed again. And to be honest, I felt somewhat disappointed that my talent and ability, he also reminded me that I'd never had any experience of local government, which I said, look, I'd worked for Dame Kath, and I think he said that she was a silly old bitch. And I said, I'd worked for Robbie, and he said, silly old fool. So I realised that I was getting nowhere. That meeting changed the lives of both of us. It removed him from office. I went away and thought, if the mayor thinks that this city has no future, I reckon I do. And so I then came back to him and said, I'd like to stand for the council. I would like to be your deputy mayor. Again, he said, I think that's a crazy idea. And when I came back to that office, I was sitting in his chair. But I have to tell you, every young man that walks in the door that says, I've got a good idea, I immediately see. My secret of success in the Mayoralty has been to read trends that were about to happen. And I went back to my old research in the advertising business, which I'd been working on for a number of clients, big clients, to find out the trends that would dominate the 90s. And clearly, the one that I found, and the one that I came to discuss with Mayor Corbyn, was the environment. And I found that that was the one trend, not a fad, but the one trend I wanted to go with. So the first thing that I needed to do was to explain that it wasn't about tree hugging either. It was about smart people doing sustainable things for the future. The one thing that drove me for the 18 years was the establishment of the Waitakere Ranges bill. I thought the parliamentary bill that gave the Waitakere Ranges a future was important. And to be honest, I almost talked myself into resigning that year, which is now 4 years ago. I thought that was, I completed my work. And so this last term, in putting the city to bed has been a terrific bonus, really. I'll tell you how I've managed to keep my nose clean. I have no investments in the city other than my house. I have two houses. I own two houses. One at the beach and one in the city. Every other mayor, other than Tim Shadbolt, in almost 100 years, was a major shareholder in some large operation. The Corbyns owned half of Henderson. Kovic owned half of Lincoln Road, sold the council his testing station and the council chamber. I mean, what does that say? It says that people are going to get pretty, tricky. The McCarty had large investment and built the council chamber and then put his council in it, So I am very honest. I don't think that two things will catch you in politics, and one is sex and one is funding. I've been married for 40 years. That helps. 6 kids. And I don't have financial investments or any involvement. And so I reckon that if you do the right kind of job, you don't have to watch your back. Waitakere, God. I mean, I was in such a frenzy with some great councillors, that we all had cars that didn't have any electronics on that. We had horses on standby because we thought after a week there won't be one power, there will not be one electronic thing that will work. No lifts will open, no doors will open, no supermarkets and cities. Now, that was government briefing, but boy, did we take it seriously. Barry Shaw, former editor, was working on a Gestetner project so we could print news. In other words, we thought until the services are resumed, which could be 3 months, we would be responsible for feeding summer, which was good news. We would be responsible for the welfare of 200,000 people. Now, we smile now. But if it had turned to shit, there would be chaos after a week. First few days, fine. People, in their melting down fridges would eat, and then there would be barbecues. Second week, the needle would start to go. 3 weeks later, So we seriously addressed that, and it just rolled over. The clocks just went over. Now, I mean, I am deeply, deeply troubled by the city, and the fact that on my watch, I have been unable to stem domestic violence. Last weekend in this city, there were 54 call-outs to domestic violence, and I find that totally unacceptable. And I don't care what you are, what colour you are, what ethnicity you have. There is no excuse for beating the shit out of your wife and child and all children. And 54 families last weekend were at war. Unacceptable. And I refuse to buy the situation of marginalised families, difficult, unemployment. That's bullshit. Half of New Zealand's unemployed. They don't go home and take machetes to their wife and kids. So I found the tragedy of violence in New Zealand unacceptable. I'm very supportive of the future and the super city, although I don't like the term super city because I think the expectation is too high, and I think that I'm mayor of a super city. It's called Waitakere. Two things. The reason I didn't stand was I felt that the job was not empowered, which I thought it should have been. And I also thought that the structure of which it's been set up is just basically recreating the boroughs. And I think the people that are standing, and pardon me being critical of the people that are going to stand, because the people that are standing at the local level are basically angry, disfranchised, elderly people who wage war on the council when they disagree with them. So the super city idea was to develop a city with one voice and a structure that well, not only would show good governance, but also government could deal with. Now they've set up a bunch of angry old farts, really, that will jump on planes very soon and go to Wellington waving banners and shouting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they'll basically, the very nature of it is that they're angry. They don't like the super city. So they're standing in the burbs and they will have a war with the Council of Auckland, led by Mayor Banks or Mayor Brown, I'm sure. I have tried not to do it as a politician. I've tried not to be clever. I've tried not to be too smart. I've just thought this needs to be responded to. Yeah. And I guess that I would say yes to a lot of things that people wouldn't say yes to, because I'm very obtainable. You know, I'm listed in the phone book. People have my mobile phone. I think I picked my parents well. I've got a lot of energy. I swim and go to the gym every day almost. So I've been always a competitive individual. I've been in sport all my life, and I think that helps. I think you couldn't do this if you'd had a mild heart attack or a mild stroke. You couldn't do it. I mean, it needs robust health, and I think who knows what the future leads. But I've got to slow down a bit now. We're 70, and I guess that's got to tell you something. But right now it's working so well, I'm complaining. But I'm leaving this job feeling absolutely delighted about how you can come into local government and do a good job. I think all of that stuff that's happened to other people is a great pity. You know, the credit card scandals and all that kind of stuff. But most people get what they deserve. And I think that the people do too. It's a good lesson. You get the politicians you vote for and the newspapers you read. So I'm leaving the job absolutely delighted. There's a thing in politics, you can say, all politics end in tears, and all politicians go away crying. Whether you know, Blair, Clinton, you know, name a politician. Usually their careers end in sometimes despair. Rudd, for instance, is a good example of that. But mine is not. The reason is that I'm not being fired, that the city is leaving me, I ain't leaving the city.